So I set myself a challenge this year. There's a couple of projects which we've never managed to talk about at this forum, largely because we haven't gotten around to it. That's the only reason. And now I think I'm about the only one left who was involved in the projects long enough to be able to speak to them. So I've set myself a challenge to speak about both of them. And then I have stitched myself up completely because I decided that if I could fit this first presentation in 5 minutes, then we could still get 6 presentations in and exactly finish at 11 o'clock for morning tea. So we'll see how we go. It'll be a quick one and you might not get any questions. This leads on really nicely from Kay's presentation, which is why I put it here. Basically, when I was a kid on Cape Otway, and I grew up on Cape Otway, several of the ecosystems were quite different to what they are today. So, for instance, what is now, or the wet heath habitats, for instance, were quite open. You could see across a lot of them. The maritime grasslands or the dune scrub was more open, grassier. Again, now it's a wall of coast wattle, coast tea tree, leucopogon, coastal beard heath. So a lot of it has changed. The woodlands too, that were far more open when I was a child, are now incredibly dense with shrubs. And so that has led to concern about several species and hence Kay's interest in different ecosystems and vegetation types across Cape Otway. It certainly led us to start thinking about this species, the Leafy Greenhood, which in fact Gary has done quite a lot of surveys of in the past too. We started monitoring this species several years ago, largely out of concern because I knew of at least 3 populations that were no longer existing on the Cape, and we were concerned that the ones that remained might go the same way. So we set up a program, and I haven't been well behaved and given myself notes, so I'm going to have to look. You'll bear with me. But we started an annual monitoring program in 2016. We continued that on till 2021. We did miss a year last year. We were looking in particular at 3 main colonies of this species, and I should say it's a vulnerable species, hence our interest. And we established several stations within each of these populations, and that was based a little bit on the size of the populations. But basically at each station we had 9 quadrats, each of which was 3 by 3 metres, and we were just measuring the number of individuals and the number of individuals within those that were flowering, the proportion of. You can see the number of stations. We had 3 sites, 2 of them were on private property, including the GC site, which stands for Geelong College, who own a property on Cape Otway. We're a little bit vague around where the locations are because we're dealing with a rare and threatened plant, hence there's no map. And simply we were just after the demographics of the population. We're going to do this in 5 minutes so easily, guys, so I'll just stall for a moment if you don't mind. These were the results. So we fitted a model to the raw data because the raw data was quite messy. But basically these are the 3 different sites. The private property site having far more plants per quadrat on average compared to the National Park and the Geelong College site. And that's just individuals that emerged each year. Then having a look at the number of plants that actually flowered, and you can see mostly stable, except in the one site, the private property, there's a bit of a free fall, or what looks like a free fall in the number of the flowers, the number of the plants coming above the ground that actually flowered. There's a whole lot of variation in the data. It's quite messy. So if we have a look at this graph, is simply showing the total number of plants at the different sites within each site. And you can see the majority of them are quite stable, but then some of them have this sort of free fall like you see in the 2.3 where plants are really disappearing. And so this is the stuff we're really keen to understand a little further. I should point out, oh no, I shouldn't point out at all. I did have a good picture, which Mark kindly sent to me yesterday, and I couldn't manage to work out the format. And because he got here late this morning, we couldn't fix it. So it's largely Mark's fault that I don't have the picture. Thanks, Mark.
But basically what we're seeing is a highly variable number of emergence rates. What and when I say emergence, this is, they're a tuberous species, so each spring they come above ground and then die back in summer. Each year is very variable, and there's maybe an interaction there with autumn rainfall. But some sites are declining quite dramatically. Now, what has happened in the private property, in some of the sites, is shrub encroachment is continuing. So in a couple of the private property sites, the cattle have been removed. That's actually led to an intensification of shrubs, and that's impacted some of the sites, we think. Unfortunately, we didn't also have a covariate to look at what was happening with shrub intensification at those sites. We do have some photos which start to tell those stories. The site that was really appeared to be in free fall, the private property site, that is the most isolated. We haven't been able to find any other populations of greenhoods around it. So there's a potential that it's a genetically isolated population. That's completely anecdotal. We don't know the answer to that, but there's certainly some concern about how isolated that is. And really, I guess we are, just keen to keep doing this long term, because it's only if we do these long term monitorings that we're going to have any idea of what's driving the change and what is changing. So I'm done.